Hello and welcome to another video lesson with Mr. Roman. Today we're going to be talking about finding the GCF, or the greatest common factor of polynomials. So let's start here with a binomial with 5x squared minus 25y cubed. So here we look at this and we have two monomials. We have a monomial here and a monomial here, and that's what creates the binomial, or in other words, with two monomials. And if we're looking to find the greatest common factor of this binomial, well, remember, factors are numbers that are being multiplied together to give you another number. So we could say like the factors of 12 are 3 and 4. So those are two numbers that would multiply together to give me 3 and 4. So way to start this is to list the prime factors of each monomial in the binomial. So here, if we list the prime factors of 5x squared, we would say 5 times x times x. So that's listing the prime factors of 5x squared. And then the prime factors of 25y cubed, you would say 5 times 5 times y times y times y. So those are the prime factors of 25y cubed. And then we look and we say, what's the greatest common factor between the two monomials here? So well, we can see that what they have in common is one factor of 5. Okay, so they don't share any variables, and they only share one common factor of 5. So the GCF here, the GCF would be 5 in this case. So let's look at another example with a binomial here. We have 16x cubed minus 24x. So if we list the prime factors here of 16x cubed, we would say 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16. And then we'd list x times x times x. So this would be the prime factorization of 16x cubed. Then if we took 24x, we would say 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. So that would be the prime factorization of 24x. And then to find the greatest common factor, we just look at what they have in common. So they share one x together, and they share 3 of the 2's, 3 factors of 2. So here we could say that the GCF of these two monomials, or of the binomial here, would be 8x. So the 8 comes from the fact that you multiply the 2 times the 2 times the 2 to get 8x. And then the third example we're going to look at is 36x squared y plus 9x cubed y cubed. And again, let's go ahead and list the prime factors of each of these monomials. So we would have 2 times 2, which would be 4, times 3, which would be 12, times 3, which is 36, and then x times y. And then the prime factorization of 9x cubed, so you'd have 3 times 3 times x times x times x times y times y times y. And now, again, if we're looking for the greatest common factor of the binomial, we want to look for what's common. So we're going to say they have 2 of the x's they have in common, 1 of the y's they have in common, and then 2 of the 3's they have in common here. So our GCF of the binomial is going to be 9x squared y, 9x squared y. So here, now let's move to a trinomial, so an expression with 3 monomials in it. And we can look and we can say that this is a monomial, and the negative 9x is a monomial, and then the 6 is also a monomial. And let's go ahead and use the prime factorization of each of the 3 monomials. So here we would have 3 times 5 times x for the red, and then we'd have 3 times x for the green, and then 2 times 3 for the blue. And then we look and we try and find what is common between all 3 of them, and we can see pretty quickly that they all share a factor of 3. So the GCF here is going to be simply just the number 3, because the 6 does not have a variable to share in the greatest common factor. So let's start this next one here with a trinomial, and we have 3 monomials in this expression. So let's start with the 30x cubed. You'd have 3 times 2 times 5 times x times x times x. And then the 18, you would have 2 times 3 times 3 times x times x. And then with the blue, you're going to have 3 times 2 times 2 times x. So again, we're looking for the greatest common factor. So what's common between all 3 of them? And they're all going to share a 3, and they're all going to share a 2. So all going to share a 3 and a 2, and then they're all going to share 1x together. So we can say the GCF of this expression is going to be 6x. And the last example we'll look at today is a trinomial, and we're going to look at the 3 monomials individually and try and break them down into their prime factors. So let's start with the 44x squared y cubed. So you'd have 2 times 2 times 11 times x times x times y times y times y. Then with the green, we would have 2 times 5 times x times y times y. And then with the with the blue, we would have 2 times 13 times x times x times y. And then we're looking for the greatest common factor, so what they all share together. They're all going to share 1, 2 together, and they're all going to share 1x together, and then they're all going to share 1y together. So then our GCF here of the trinomial is going to be 2xy in this case. Thank you for tuning in. Check out the other videos on my website.